Marcus woke in the Palace Medical Center feeling better than he had any right to feel. Once again, Volanthi medicine had worked miracles on his body. The wounds that should have taken months to heal were already fading. He lay in bed staring at the crystal ceiling and wondering what would happen next. A servant arrived with a formal summons. The Queen commanded his presence in the great throne hall. Full court was in session. Marcus, dressed in the finest clothes he had been given, and made his way through the palace. Guards nodded to him as he passed. Servants stepped aside with something that looked like respect. Word of what had happened on the moon had spread through the capital. The human who had held off 50 Kreth soldiers was no longer a curiosity. He was something else entirely. The great throne hall was filled with more beings than Marcus had ever seen in one place. Volanthi nobles crowded the floor, wearing their most elaborate robes. Ambassadors from a dozen species stood in designated areas. Floating cameras broadcast the proceedings across the empire. Something important was happening. Marcus walked down the central aisle, feeling thousands of eyes upon him. He reached the proper distance from the throne and knelt. "Rise," the Queen commanded. He rose and met her gaze. Valendra looked different today. There was something in her expression that he could not identify. Something that might have been warmth. "Marcus Yoon of Earth," she said, and her voice filled the chamber. "You came to us as a stranger, a member of a species that many considered beneath notice. You were bound to my house by the life debt, and you had every reason to resent your captivity." She paused and let silence fill the hall. "Instead, you served with honor," she continued. "You learned our ways and endured our insults without complaint. When my daughter was in danger, you did not hesitate. Twice now you have thrown yourself between her and death. You have bled for Volanthi. Citizens who showed you nothing but contempt." Marcus said nothing. He did not know what response was expected. "The life debt I spoke of has grown beyond any measure I know," the Queen said. "There is no way to repay what you have given. Therefore, I offer you a choice." The hall went completely silent. Even the ambassadors leaned forward to hear. "You may return to humanity," Valendra said. "You will go with full honors and gifts befitting a hero of the Empire. The life debt will be considered settled. You will be free." Marcus felt his heart leap at the word free. He could go home. He could see Earth again. He could return to his normal life. "Or," the Queen continued, "you may accept permanent status within my court, not as a servant or guardian, not as a prisoner bound by debt, but as a noble of the Volanthi realm with all the rights and privileges the title carries." The hall erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted in protest, and some stormed toward the throne. Guards moved to intercept them, but the Queen raised her hand, and everyone froze. "This is unprecedented," one of the senior nobles cried. "A human cannot hold noble rank. It has never been done. It violates every tradition of our empire." "Your traditions," the Queen said coldly, "not mine. I am the Queen, and I will decide who is worthy of nobility in my realm." She turned her gaze back to Marcus. "Many of you wear fine titles passed down through generations," she said. "You inherited your rank from ancestors who earned it through great deeds. But what have you done to deserve what you hold? This human has earned more in 6 months than most of you have earned in centuries. He has shown honor that shamas are noble houses. True nobility is proven through deeds, not blood." The protesters fell silent. They had no answer to her words. "Marcus Yoon," the Queen said, "what is your choice?" Marcus stood frozen as the weight of the moment pressed down upon him. He thought of Earth and his family, and the life he had left behind. He thought of the career he had lost and the future he had planned. Then he looked at Selith, standing near the throne. Her skin flickered with colors. He had learned to read hope and fear, and something deeper that she could not hide. He thought about what his life would mean if he returned to Earth. He would be a curiosity for a while, then forgotten. He would return to routine security work and ordinary days. But here among the Volanthi, he had found something. Unexpected purpose and belonging, and maybe even love, Your Majesty, he said. I accept your offer of nobility. But I have one request. The queen raised an eyebrow. Speak, she said. I do not want titles for their own sake, Marcus said. I want to use my position to build bridges between our peoples. Humans are seen as lesser beings throughout the galaxy. I want to prove that we deserve respect among the stars. Let me serve as a connection between humanity and the Volanthi Empire. Let my life have meaning beyond myself. The queen smiled, and it transformed her ancient face. For a moment, she looked almost young. Granted, she said. I name you Lord Protector of Human Volanthi Relations. You will serve as my voice in all matters concerning your species, and you will show the galaxy what humans can become. The court bowed, and even the protesters acknowledged the queen's decree. Marcus had become something no human had ever been before, a noble of an alien empire, a voice for his species among the stars. After the ceremony, Saleth found him on a balcony overlooking the capital. The twin suns had set, and the sky blazed with unfamiliar stars. She stood beside him, and her skin glowed with soft golden light. You chose to stay, she said. Yes, he replied. Why? Marcus thought about the question for a long moment. Because I found something here that I never expected, he said. A home that is not a place, but a purpose. And maybe, he paused, maybe I found something else too. Saleth's glow brightened, and she moved closer to him. My mother told me something after the battle, she said. She said that you remind her of my father. He died long ago, before I was born. But she still speaks of him sometimes. What does she say? Marcus asked. She says he had the same quality you have. Saleth replied, the willingness to stand between danger and those who cannot protect themselves, no matter the cost. She says it is the rarest thing in the universe, and that she never expected to see it again. Marcus did not know what to say. He looked up at the alien stars and felt the princess's presence beside him, warm and real. He had come to this world as a prisoner and found freedom in a form he never imagined. He had been despised, and he had earned respect. He had been alone, and he had found connection. One human's instinct to protect had changed the relationship between two civilizations. And as he stood there beneath the light of distant suns, Marcus knew that this was only the beginning. Whatever came next, he would face it as he had faced everything else, with courage, with honor, and with the stubborn determination that made humans who they were. The stars waited above him, full of dangers and wonders, and Marcus Yoon would meet them all. 6 months after Marcus arrived on Velanth Prime, the Kreth began their revenge. They could not attack the homeworld directly, so they struck at the border colonies instead. Small raiding parties hit supply convoys and outposts, killing civilians and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The message was clear. The Volanthi had chosen to protect the human, and now their people would pay the price. Queen Valindra responded by sending her daughter on a goodwill mission to the border worlds. Princess Saleth would show the colonists that the crown had not forgotten them. She would bring supplies and hope to those who had suffered. Marcus argued against the mission. The border regions were dangerous, and Saleth would be an obvious target. But the queen insisted, and the princess herself wanted to go. My people are dying. Saleth said, I cannot hide in the palace while they suffer. Marcus understood her reasoning, even if he did not agree with it. So he prepared for the journey and made sure the security detail was the best available. They traveled aboard a diplomatic cruiser with an escort of 4 warships. The journey took 3 days and passed without incident. The first colony they visited was called Volanthi Reachit. It was a small world of forests and lakes settled 5 centuries ago. The colonists greeted Saleth with joy and gratitude. Marcus stood beside her as she distributed supplies and spoke words of comfort. He watched for threats and saw none, but he could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. His instincts proved correct on the second day. They were leaving the colony when the Kreth attacked. 12 warships emerged from hiding behind a nearby moon and opened fire on the escort, the Volanthi. Warships fought bravely, but they were outnumbered one by one. They fell, leaving the diplomatic cruiser unprotected. The captain tried to flee, but a Kreth torpedo struck the engines. The ship spiraled down toward a contested moon below. They crashed in a valley between two mountain ranges. The impact killed half the crew and left the ship a burning wreck. Marcus pulled Salith from the debris and checked her for injuries. She was shaken, but unharmed. Around them, the surviving crew and guards stumbled out of the wreckage. Marcus counted 15 survivors, including himself and the princess. The Volanthi guards looked to their commander for orders, but the commander was dead. They looked at each other with confusion and fear. Then they looked at Marcus. "What do we do?" One of them asked. Marcus took a deep breath and made a decision. "We find defensible ground," he said. "The Kreth will send troops to finish what they started. We need to survive until rescue arrives." The Volanthi guards hesitated. Taking orders from a human went against everything they believed, but they had no other options. "Move," Marcus commanded. They moved. Marcus led them to a cluster of rocks on a hillside that overlooked the valley. It was not perfect, but it provided cover and a clear view of approaching enemies. He organized the guards into defensive positions and distributed what weapons they had salvaged. The Volanthi watched him with new eyes. This was not the clumsy human who struggled with court etiquette. This was a warrior doing what he was born to do. The Kreth ground forces arrived 2 hours later. 3 shuttles landed in the valley, and 50 soldiers spread out to search for survivors. Marcus watched them through salvage binoculars and calculated the odds. 15 against 50 was not good. But the Kreth did not know where they were hiding. That gave them an advantage. "We let them come to us," Marcus said. "Wait for my signal, then hit them hard. Make every shot count." The guards nodded. For the first time, they looked at him with something like respect. The battle lasted 4 hours. The Kreth attacked in waves, and each wave was thrown back with heavy losses. Marcus fought beside the Volanthi guards, and they fought beside him. Species did not matter when survival was at stake. 3 guards fell in the first assault. 2 more died in the second. By the end, Marcus had taken wounds to his arm and leg, but he refused to stop fighting. During a brief pause in the fighting, Salith crawled over to where Marcus was reloading his weapon. "You should rest," she said. "I cannot," he replied. "If I stop, the others will lose hope." "Why do humans fight so hard for others?" she asked. "I have watched you carry wounded guards to safety. You have taken bullets meant for people who mocked you for months. Why?" Marcus thought about the question as he watched the Kreth preparing for another assault. "Humans evolved as pack animals," he said. "Alone we are weak. Together we are strong. Protecting the group is written into our blood. It is not something we choose. It is simply what we are." Salith stared at him with wonder in her eyes. "My people have lived for thousands of years," she said. "We have mastered technology that humans cannot imagine. But I do not think we have anything like what you just described. Maybe that is what makes humans special." The Kreth attacked again, and there was no more time for talk. Marcus fought until his weapons ran dry, and then he fought with his hands. He stood over fallen guards and dared the enemy to come closer. They came, and he made them pay for every step. Then the sky lit up with golden fire. Volanthi warships descended through the clouds, raining destruction upon the Kreth forces. Shuttles exploded, and soldiers fled in panic. Rescue had arrived. The lead ship landed near the defensive position, and a ramp extended. Queen Valindra herself walked down, surrounded by her personal guard. She had come personally. She had not trusted anyone else to save her daughter. The queen surveyed the scene with ancient eyes. She saw the Kreth bodies scattered across the hillside. She saw her wounded guards lying in defensive positions. She saw her daughter alive and unharmed. And she saw Marcus standing at the center of it all, covered in blood, that was mostly not his own. He straightened when he saw her and raised his hand in a formal salute. "Your Majesty," he said, "the princess is safe." Then his legs gave out, and he collapsed. Salith caught him before he hit the ground. The queen moved quickly, crossing the distance with surprising speed. She knelt beside Marcus and studied his wounds with a clinical eye. "He needs medical attention immediately," she said. "Take him to my ship." As the guards carried Marcus away, the queen leaned close to her daughter and whispered something in her ear. Salith's skin flared with shock and her eyes went wide. "Mother," she breathed, "you cannot mean that." But the queen was already walking away, and she did not answer. What had she said to make her daughter react so strongly? That was a question that would have to wait. For now, Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness as the ship carried him towards safety. He had done his duty. He had protected the princess. Whatever came next was beyond his control. 3 months had passed since Marcus became the guardian of Princess Salith. He stood now in the training courtyard of the royal palace on Valenth, Prime, watching the twin suns set over a city of crystal spires. The Valanthi homeworld was beautiful in ways that human words could not describe. Mountains floated in the sky, held aloft by ancient technology. Rivers of light flowed through the streets instead of water. Gardens grew plants that sang when the wind touched them. Marcus had learned to appreciate the beauty, but he had not learned to feel at home. The courtiers despised him. They whispered behind his back and laughed at his clumsy attempts to master Valanthi customs. He was too short, too rough, too human. His presence in the palace was an insult to everything they believed about their superior civilization. Marcus did not let their contempt bother him. He had a job to do, and he intended to do it well. Every morning he trained with the palace guards, learning their combat forms and weapons. Every afternoon he studied Valanthi history and protocol with tutors who barely hid their disdain. Every evening he stood at the princess's side during formal dinners and tried not to embarrass himself. Salith had become his only friend. In this alien world, she spent hours teaching him the subtleties of her culture and defending him against the mockery of the nobles. She was curious about Earth and asked endless questions about human customs. Marcus told her about pizza and football and family dinners on Sunday evenings. She listened with wonder, as if he were describing miracles instead of ordinary life. "Your people are so young," she said one evening as they walked through the palace gardens. "You have existed for such a short time, and yet you have already spread to the stars." "We are stubborn," Marcus said, "and too stupid to know when something is impossible." Salith laughed, and her skin glowed with warm golden patterns. "I think there is more to it than that," she said. "There is something in humans that other species lack. A fire that keeps burning no matter how many times it is extinguished." Marcus shrugged. He had never thought of humans as special. They were just people doing their best to survive. Queen Valendra watched all of this from a distance. She never spoke to Marcus directly after that first meeting in the throne chamber, but he often caught her observing him from balconies or through windows. Her expression was unreadable, and that made him nervous. Then the Kreth made their move. A diplomatic message arrived, demanding that Marcus be surrendered to Kreth custody. They claimed he had murdered their operatives at the diplomatic station and must face justice. Everyone knew it was nonsense. The assassins had attacked first, and Marcus had acted in defense of the princess. But the Kreth did not care about truth. They wanted revenge for their humiliation, and they saw Marcus as an easy target. The queen called a council meeting to discuss the demand. Marcus was not invited, but Salith told him what happened afterward. Several high-ranking nobles had argued that surrendering Marcus was the wise choice. He was just a human, they said. His life was not worth a war with the Kreth Dominion. The queen had listened to their arguments in silence. Then she had spoken. "The human acted in defense of royal blood," she said. "He stands under the protection of my crown. Anyone who suggests surrendering him will be removed from this council permanently." The nobles fell silent. No one dared to argue when the Kreth ambassador came to receive the Queen's response. He expected compliance. Instead, Valindra told him that Marcus Yoon was a member of her household, and any action against him would be considered an act of war against the Volanthi Empire. The ambassador turned pale and left without another word. Marcus heard about this from Syleth, and he did not know what to feel. The Queen had defended him against one of the most powerful nations in the galaxy. She had risked war for a human security consultant. It did not make sense. He found the Queen that evening, standing alone on a balcony overlooking the city. He had not planned to approach her, but something drew him forward. "Your Majesty," he said. She turned to look at him, and her ancient eyes revealed nothing. "Human," she acknowledged. "I wanted to thank you," Marcus said, "for what you did today, and to tell you that I am willing to surrender myself if it would prevent war. My life is not worth the lives of your people." The Queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was sharp with anger. "You insult me," she said. "You think I defended you out of sentiment. You think I would risk my empire for feelings." Marcus did not know how to respond. "I defended you because the life debt demands it," Valindra continued, "and because I will not bow to Kreth threats. If I surrender you today, they will demand something else tomorrow. Strength is the only language they understand." She paused, and her expression softened slightly. "But there is another reason," she admitted. "I have watched you these past months, human. You do not scheme for advancement. You do not seek favors or power. You simply do your duty with honor. Such qualities are rare even among my own people." Marcus did not know what to say. He had never expected the Queen to notice anything about him. "Do not offer your life so carelessly," Valindra said. "It has more value than you realize." She turned and walked away, leaving Marcus alone on the balcony. Later that night, Syleth found him in the garden. "You spoke to my mother," she said. "The whole palace is talking about it. I thanked her for defending me," Marcus said, "and I offered to surrender myself." Syleth stared at him with an expression he could not read. "You offered to die for us," she said softly. "After everything we have put you through, after all the insults and mockery, it would have prevented war," Marcus said. "That seemed more important than my life." Syleth was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke, and her voice was barely above a whisper. "My mother has never defended anyone like that," she said. "Not her advisors, not her generals, not even her own siblings when they fell from favor. She defended you, Marcus, a human she has known for only 3 months. I do not understand what that means." Marcus did not understand either, but as he looked up at the alien stars above the palace, he felt something shift inside him. Perhaps this strange world was not just a prison. Perhaps it was becoming something else, something he did not have a word for yet. Marcus woke in a room that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of crystal. Soft light came from everywhere and nowhere at once. He tried to sit up and was surprised to find that his shoulder did not hurt anymore. He looked down and saw a smooth skin where the plasma burn had been. Not even a scar remained. "The medical technology of my people is quite advanced." Marcus turned toward the voice and found Princess Syleth sitting in a chair beside his bed. She wore simple robes of pale blue, and her skin glowed with gentle silver patterns. "How long was I unconscious?" he asked. 3 of your Earth days," she replied. "We brought you aboard our flagship, the Eternal Dawn." Marcus looked around the room again and realized he was no longer on the diplomatic station. He was on a Volanthi ship somewhere in space. "I should contact my commanders," he said. "They will be wondering where I am." "That has been handled," Syleth said. "My mother sent word to your human delegation that you are under our care." Something about the way she said those words made Marcus uneasy. "Under your care," he repeated. "What does that mean exactly?" Before Syleth could answer, the door opened and a tall Volanthi male entered. He wore the uniform of a royal attendant, and his expression suggested he had just eaten something unpleasant. "The Queen demands the presence of the human," he announced. "She will see him now." Marcus stood and found that someone had changed his clothes while he slept. He now wore a simple gray tunic and pants that were clearly not human-made. Salith rose and gestured for him to follow her. "I will take you to her," she said. "Try not to be frightened." Marcus wanted to say that he was not frightened, but that would have been a lie. They walked through corridors of gleaming metal and crystal. Volanthi crew members stopped and stared as Marcus passed. He heard whispers in their musical language and caught looks of confusion and disgust. Humans were clearly not common visitors on Volanthi ships. The throne chamber was enormous. Pillars of crystal rose toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into soft light. Hundreds of Volanthi nobles stood along the walls watching as Marcus entered. At the far end of the chamber, Queen Valindra sat upon a throne that seemed to grow from the floor itself. She was the most beautiful and terrifying being Marcus had ever seen. Her skin blazed with patterns of deep purple and gold. Her eyes were ancient and cold, and they fixed upon Marcus with an intensity that made him want to run. He did not run. He walked forward until he stood at the proper distance, and then he knelt as he had been trained to do. When meeting alien royalty, "Rise, human. Go," Queen commanded. Her voice filled the chamber like music played on instruments. Too complex for human ears, Marcus rose and met her gaze. "You saved my daughter," Valindra said. "Yes," Marcus replied. He saw no point in false modesty. Why? The question hung in the air between them. Marcus had already answered this question for the princess, but he sensed that the queen wanted something more. She was in danger, he said. "I can help, so I helped." "You are human," Valindra said. "Your species has been part of the galactic community for less than one of your centuries. You have no alliances with our empire, and no reason to risk your life for a Volanthi princess. What did you hope to gain?" Marcus thought about the question carefully before answering. "Nothing," he said finally. "I did not think about gain. I saw someone who needed help, and I acted. That is what humans do." The queen leaned forward slightly, and her eyes narrowed. "You expect me to believe that you threw yourself in front of plasma fire for a stranger with no expectation of reward?" "I do not expect you to believe anything," Marcus said. "I am simply telling you the truth." A murmur ran through the assembled nobles. Apparently humans did not usually speak so. Directly to the Queen, Valindra was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke again, and her voice was harder than before. "In my culture, such actions create bonds that cannot be broken. You have saved royal blood human. This creates what we call a life debt. Do you understand what this means?" Marcus had a feeling he was about to find out. "The life debt binds you to my house," the queen continued. "Until it is repaid, you belong to us. You will remain with the Volanthi delegation and serve as my daughter's guardian. This is not a request." Marcus felt the ground shift beneath his feet. He had expected gratitude, perhaps some kind of reward or commendation. He had not expected to become property of an alien empire. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "I have duties with the human contingent. My commanders expect me to return to my post." "Your commanders have been informed that you are now under Volanthi jurisdiction," Valindra replied. "They have no claim on you that supersedes the life debt. You will serve my daughter until I deem the debt repaid. Is that understood?" Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but something in the queen's expression stopped him. This was not a negotiation. This was a decree. "Understood," he said quietly. "Good," Valindra said. "Salith will explain your duties. You are dismissed." Marcus turned and walked out of the throne chamber with the princess beside him. The nobles watched him go, and he heard their whispers following him like shadows. When they were alone in a corridor, Salith stopped and faced him. "I am sorry," she said. "I tried to convince my mother to let you go, but she would not listen. The life debt is sacred in our culture. She cannot simply ignore it. So I am a prisoner." Marcus said. "You are a guardian," Salith corrected. "There is a difference. Is there?" The princess looked away and her skin flickered with colors that might have been shame. "I will try to make this bearable for you," she said. "You saved my life." Marcus Yoon. "I will not forget that even if my mother treats you like a possession." Marcus took a deep breath and tried to accept his new reality. He was trapped aboard an alien ship bound by customs. He did not understand to serve a princess. He had just met. His career with the human security forces was over. His plans for the future were meaningless now. But he was alive, and Princess Salith was alive. Perhaps that was enough for now. "Tell me about my duties," he said. Salith smiled. And it was the first warm expression he had seen on any Volanthi face. "First," she said, "I will teach you how to pronounce my name correctly. Then, we will discuss the 17 forms of royal etiquette you will need to learn before dinner." Marcus groaned and Salith laughed. It was a strange, beautiful sound. "Do not worry," she said. "I have faith in you. You fought off 2 assassins with a stun baton. Surely court etiquette cannot be more difficult than that." Marcus was not so sure about that, but as he followed the princess through the gleaming corridors of the eternal dawn, he realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a human security consultant from Earth. He was now bound to the Volanthi throne by bonds of blood and honor, and he had no idea what that would mean for his future. Marcus Yoon stood at his post near the outer corridor of the Volanthi diplomatic station and watched the guests move through the grand hall beyond the security barrier. He had been standing there for 6 hours already, and his feet ached inside. His standard-issue boots. The diplomatic station orbited a gray moon in neutral space, and representatives from 12 different species had gathered here to discuss trade agreements and border disputes. Marcus was part of the human security contingent, which meant he got the worst assignments. Humans were still new to galactic politics, and nobody trusted them with important work. The grand hall glowed with soft blue light that came from crystal fixtures hanging from the ceiling. Tall, slender beings with skin that shimmered like starlight moved through the crowd with perfect grace. These were the Volanthi, and they were among the oldest civilizations in the known galaxy. Their empire spanned 1,000 worlds, and their technology made human achievements look like children playing with toys. Marcus had read about them during his training, but seeing them in person was something else entirely. They moved like dancers, and their bioluminescent skin pulsed with colors that seemed to reflect their emotions. The most important Volanthi at the summit was Queen Valindra herself. She stood near the center of the hall, surrounded by advisors and guards. Her skin glowed with deep purple and silver patterns, and she wore robes that looked like they were made from liquid metal. Beside her stood a younger Volanthi female with softer features and curious eyes. This was Princess Salith, the youngest daughter of the Queen. Marcus had been briefed about her because she was considered a potential target for anyone wanting to hurt the Volanthi delegation. He checked his stun baton for the 100th time and wished he had been given a real weapon. Security consultants from minor species did not get plasma rifles. They got stun batons and stern warnings about staying out of the way. The reception continued for another hour, and Marcus began to relax. Slightly, nothing ever happened at these events. The real negotiations took place in private rooms, and the reception was just for show. Then, the lights flickered. Marcus straightened immediately and put his hand on his baton. The lights flickered again and then went out completely. Emergency lighting came on a moment later, casting everything in dim red. Screams erupted from the grand hall. Marcus heard the sharp crack of plasma fire and the deeper boom of explosions. He ran toward the sounds without thinking. His training told him to stay at his post, but his instincts told him something terrible was happening. The grand hall had become chaos. Cloaked figures moved through the crowd, firing at anyone in their path. Marcus recognized the armor style immediately. These were Kreth extremists, a faction that opposed peace with any other species. They wanted the summit to fail, and they were willing to kill everyone here to make that happen. The main security grid had failed, which meant the automated defenses were offline. The Lanthi guards fought back with elegant weapons that fired beams of golden light, but they were outnumbered and caught off guard. Marcus pushed through the panicked crowd, looking for anyone who needed help. He found 3 human delegates hiding behind an overturned table and directed them toward an emergency exit. He helped a wounded Torsion merchant to his feet and pointed him towards safety. Then he heard a scream that cut through all the other noise. It was high and frightened, and it came from a side corridor. Marcus ran toward it. He found Princess Salas pressed against a wall with 2 Kreth assassins advancing on her. Her guards were nowhere to be seen, probably dead or fighting elsewhere. The princess was young by Volanthi standards, which meant she was probably only a few centuries old. Her skin flickered with pale, fearful light, and her eyes were wide with terror. The assassins raised their weapons. Marcus did not think about what he was doing. He did not consider that he was a human security consultant with a stun baton facing 2 armored killers with plasma rifles. He simply moved. He threw himself between the princess and the assassins just as the first one fired. The plasma bolt hit him in the left shoulder, and pain exploded through his body like nothing he had ever felt. He screamed, but he did not fall. He swung his stun baton with his right arm and caught the first assassin across the face. The crest stumbled back and Marcus pressed forward. The second assassin tried to aim, but Marcus was too close. Now he drove his baton into the gap between the assassin's helmet and chest plate and activated the stun charge. The crest convulsed and dropped. The first assassin recovered and swung a blade at Marcus. He blocked it with his wounded arm and felt something tear inside his shoulder. Blood soaked through his uniform, but he kept fighting. He headbutted the assassin and felt the Kreth's nose break beneath his forehead. The assassin staggered, and Marcus hit him again and again with the baton until he stopped moving. Then Marcus turned to face the princess. She stared at him with an expression he could not read. Her skin pulsed with colors he did not understand. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice came out weak and strained. She shook her head slowly. "You are," she said. Her voice was musical even when filled with shock. Marcus looked down at his shoulder and saw that blood was dripping onto the floor. The edges of his vision began to blur. "Stay behind me," he said. He positioned himself between her and the corridor entrance and raised his baton. If more assassins came, he would fight them too. He would fight until he could not stand anymore. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, and Marcus tensed. But the figures that appeared wore the golden armor of Volanthi royal guards. They stopped when they saw the scene before them, a human male covered in blood, standing over 2 unconscious Kreth assassins with the princess safe behind him. One of the guards said something in the Volanthi language, and the others lowered their weapons. "The princess is safe," Marcus said. Then his legs gave out and he collapsed to the floor. He heard voices around him speaking in languages he did not understand. Someone pressed something against his wound and the pain faded slightly. He saw the princess kneeling beside him, her face hovering above his. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "You were in danger," he said. It seemed like a strange question. Of course he had helped her. She was in danger, and he could do something about it. That was reason enough. "You could have died," she said. "Maybe," he admitted. "But you did not die, and that is what matters." Her expression changed to something he could not identify. Then darkness took him, and he knew nothing more when the chaos ended. And the station was secured. The reports reached Queen Valindra. Her daughter was alive, because a human had thrown himself in front of plasma fire to save her. The queen stood in silence for a long moment after hearing this news. Then she spoke. In a voice that allowed no argument, "Bring the human to me," she commanded. "I will meet this man who saved my daughter." Her advisors exchanged worried glances, but none dared to question her. The queen had made her decision, and when Queen Valindra made a decision, the galaxy itself seemed to bend around her will.